Ladies and gentlemen, let's first hear remarks from the chairman of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Kadin Indonesia. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Anindya Novian Bakri to the stage.
It is an honor to deliver opening remarks at today's Indonesia International Sustainability Forum 2025 alongside so many distinguished leaders and guests. Bapak Agus Yudhoyono, Coordinating Minister of Infrastructure and Regional Development. Bapak Rosan Roslani, Minister of Investment and Downstream Industry, also CEO of Danantara Indonesia. Bapak Dodi Hanggodo, Minister of Public Works, Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Muhammad Iftitah Sulaiman Suyanegara, Minister of Transmigration of the Republic of Indonesia. I see here Bapak Tolutua Pasaribui, Vice Minister of Investment and Downstream Industry. And of course, Ibu Retno Marsudi, UN Secretary General's Special Envoy on Water and former Foreign Minister of Indonesia. Your Excellencies, Mr. and Madam Ambassadors from friendly nations to Indonesia, thank you very much for coming, indeed. Senior representatives of ministries, agencies of the Republic of Indonesia, senior representatives of provincial governments across the archipelago, distinguished speakers, moderators, and many have flown out to Jakarta for IISF welcome. And indeed, leading business leaders and members of Kadin Indonesia, Pusat and Daerah. I would like to begin by thanking and congratulating our organizers, the government of Indonesia and the ISF super team, for convening this important and constructive platform. To IISF 2025 sponsors, our industry captains and green champions of Indonesia, I would like to say a huge thank you to all of you. To IISF 2025 committee, the special group that have done the heavy lifting, also thank you very much for all of you. Some people I need to quickly mention, Bapak Rahmat Kaimuddin, Bapak Nurul Ihwan, and from Kadin, Bapak Bobi, Bu Shinta, Pak Dasono, Ibu Elim, and the whole committee, thank you very much. In a year of momentous leadership across the Global South, with Brazil hosting COP and South Africa hosting G20, ISF continues to be a leading platform globally, not only in Indonesia. ISF 2025 is a timely moment to reflect on Indonesia's journey in the sustainability transition and the opportunities we must seize to ensure growth that is not only strong, but also green, resilient, and inclusive. Indonesia's growth ambition is bold, and rightly so. As President Prabowo recently affirmed, Indonesia aims to become a top 5 global economy by 2045, a goal that will require sustained economic growth of at least 8% a year. Yet our current growth trajectory, around 5% annually, is a good start, but we need to do more. We must not only grow faster, we must grow more effective and competitive. And we must do this in a world where global volatility, technology disruption, and fiscal tightening are real headwinds. In this new landscape, business as usual does not work and will not work. We need a model growth that is competitive, resilient, and sustainable. And that model is private sector-led green growth along with the support of the government. This is not about choosing between economic and climate goals. It is about aligning the two, unlocking new industries, innovating financing structures, and creating jobs that we all need that will also power both prosperity and sustainability. Data from Bloomberg New Economic Finance that works in collaboration with Kadin reveals that a net zero Indonesia represents an investment opportunity of 3.8 trillion US dollars. It's a number that I'm sure Pak Rosan is happy to hear. To put it into perspective, that will make up about 4% of total cumulative GDP from now until 2025. Last year, we invested about 4 billion US dollars in energy transition, mainly in electrified transport and power grids. Indonesia still lacks its fellow emerging economies in energy transition investment. Both the public and private sector have a role to play in amplifying the country's sustainability efforts and collectively shorten the time needed to reach net zero goal that President Prabowo reaffirmed. Just 2 weeks ago, Indonesia marked its first appearance in the United Nations General Assembly in a decade. And it did so with a clear, forward-looking message. Our president reaffirmed Indonesia's commitment to the Paris Agreement and restated our target to reach net zero emissions by 2060. He also went further. He called for a just and inclusive global energy transition. Also, greater respect for developing countries' rights to grow. Stronger global investment in climate resilience, food security, and renewable energy access, especially for the global south. This is more than a climate commitment. It is a call to future-proof our economy, strengthen energy security, and unlock new investment and innovation pathways. That is what today is about, turning the ambition into action. How is Indonesia doing so far? Strikingly, we are one of the lowest emitting countries on a per capita basis. In 2022, the average Indonesian emitted about a third as much as our American counterpart. Each country's decarbonization journey is unique, but Indonesia's is particularly distinctive. For most markets, the power and the heat sector is the main source of emissions. However, in Indonesia, land use change, and forestry account for 30% of our emissions. To achieve net zero by 2050, if you want to do it sooner, Indonesia must halve its emissions by 2035. Many different technologies are needed to cut energy-related emissions. Two key levers are clean power and the electrification of end-user sectors, such as road transport, buildings, and industry. To mobilize those two levers, Indonesia's critical minerals will play a crucial role both domestically and globally. In supporting the transition to a net zero Indonesia, Kadin Indonesia has been driving 3 flagship initiatives. One, the Kadin Net Zero Hub, which has equipped over 80 firms with tools to commit to science-based targets. 2, the ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Markets and Carbon Knowledge Hub, which we have paved the way and advocated for cross-border carbon markets. And 3, the Kadin Regenerative Forest Business Hub, a platform to pioneer regenerative business models. These are not ideas on paper. These are platforms already shaping projects, pipelines, and partnerships. To double-click on forests momentarily, Indonesia forests are the leading source of forestry credits. Estimates suggest that Indonesia can actually generate enough high-quality forestry credits to become a net exporter, producing around 13 billion forestry credits from 2024 to 2050. But Indonesia cannot transition alone. That is why we established the Kadin Global Engagement Office, Kadin GEO. It brings together global, multilateral, and key bilateral platforms under one roof. So we can connect Indonesian enterprises with the world. Across 6 thematic pillars, from climate and energy to health, digital economy, and beyond, Kadin GEO is turbocharging Indonesian business groups to expand globally and position Indonesia at the heart of the global supply chains. There are 2 initiatives that I'm pleased to share we have achieved to date. The Indonesian Transition Factbook, which we will share to our esteemed coordinating ministers and ministers. We're doing this in a partnership between Kadin and Bloomberg New Energy Finance. And this publication provides a comprehensive, data-driven roadmap for Indonesia's net zero journey and energy transition pathways. And number 2, the World Economic Forum Jobs and Skills Accelerator, supported by McKinsey, Bappenas, Kemenaker, and this program seeks to foster green and digital skills to bridge industry needs and policies, thus positioning Indonesia as a hub for regional transformation and just transition. These are proof points, and they show that Indonesia's private sector can be both competitive and climate aligned when we have the right enabling partnerships and indeed in support of the government. In just last few months, we have deepened this work through high-level engagements with various parties in Jakarta, in New York, through the Factbook launch, and these events are signals that Indonesia is ready to lead, ready to set the pace, ready to act. So what now? We have shown a lot of data, encouraging data, on Indonesia's potential transition. In summary, to seize the $3.8 trillion decarbonization opportunity before us, Indonesia's private sector must lead in 4 critical areas. First, climate. Net zero is achievable not just through reductions, but through innovation, investment, and market creation. And second, capital. We must mobilize finance into renewable, critical minerals, waste to energy, and grid upgrades. Public-private partnership can de-risk these pathways. And 3, carbon markets. Indonesia has the potential to be a global leader in nature and tech-based credits. Kadin and ASEM are ready to ensure credit integrity and supply. And lastly, skills. The transition will create jobs, but only if we act now to prepare our workforce. That means upskilling, reskilling, and building talent pipelines for green industries. This is the roadmap. The opportunity is clear. What matters now is execution. Lastly, the green growth agenda is no longer just about meeting climate goals. It is about securing Indonesia's economic future, ensuring that growth is strong, sustainable, and inclusive, with the right coalitions within the government, which very much supportive to the business and the global partners over here. We can unlock this future together. And Indonesia will not just participate in the global energy transition, we will lead it. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for your remarks, Mr. Anindya Novian Bakri. That stresses one more time that sustainability efforts will open a lot of job opportunities. And so let's safeguard this sustainability efforts through one of them is through the ICF 2025 as the accelerator to that goal. And ladies and gentlemen, throughout today, we'll have very exciting panel discussions as well as keynote addresses that will be delivered on this stage. So please follow all of our agenda as we safeguard the sustainability effort of Indonesia. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to the stage the Coordinating Minister for Infrastructure and Regional Development of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency Agus Harimurti Yudhoyono, for his remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace and blessings be upon us all. His Excellency, Bapak Roslani, Minister of Investment and Downstream Industry, and also the CEO of Danantara. Distinguished ministers and all members of Merah Putih Cabinet, we have here Minister of Public Works, His Excellency Bapak Dodi Hanggodo, Minister of Transmigration, Bapak Iftitah Sulaiman Suryanegara, Vice Minister of Investment and Downstream Industry, Bapak Todotua Pasaribu, Vice Minister for Home Affairs, Ibu Ripka Muluk, Chairman of the Indonesia Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Bapak Anindya Bakri. Thank you for your inspiring speech. And the United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy on Water, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ibu Retno Marsudi. Ambassadors of friendly countries to the Republic of Indonesia, esteemed business leaders, and we also have so many regional leaders. I see some governors, mayors, bupati, and of course I would like to thank international partners, friends of Indonesia, Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati dan muliakan, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to speak at the Indonesia International Sustainability Forum, the ISF 2025, at a moment when the world is being reshaped, not only by the climate crisis, but by uncertain geopolitics, supply chain shifts, economic realignment, and the race for new energy systems. They affect food prices, jobs, energy access, water supply, and fiscal space. We cannot afford to see climate and economic development as two separate agendas. One cannot advance by sacrificing the other. We must achieve both. Ladies and gentlemen, for too long, the sustainability agenda has been defined by those who industrialize first. The models, the technologies, even the language of transition have largely been shaped by the global north. But the conditions of the global south are different. Our demographics, our growth needs, and our fiscal realities are all different. One lesson is clear. There is no one-size-fits-all formula, no silver bullet, and no single template that developing countries can simply copy. Indonesia and many other nations like us cannot and should not replicate strategies designed for countries whose development curves peaked a century ago. We must chart our own path to sustainability. And to do that, we need spaces like this forum, a stage where we can exchange ideas, experiments, not as recipients, but as co-creators of solutions, where we support each other in building development models that are just, realistic, and future-proof. That is the philosophy behind this ISF, not just a conference, but a platform to shape our own narrative. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are serious about sustainability, we must begin where every society begins, with food, water, and energy. These are the foundations of life, and without them, no nation can build a just or lasting future. Before we talk about green transition, digital transformation, smart mobility, or industrial decarbonization, we must first ensure that every household is nourished, every community has access to clean water, and every region is powered reliably. Indonesia carries this responsibility at an extraordinary scale, feeding more than 280 million people, one of the largest and the youngest populations on earth. That task demands productive land, modern irrigation, and resilient distribution systems that work in every season, not just on paper. We are expanding food estates in selected regions, revitalizing irrigation and improving land use planning so that farms remain farms and they can stay productive. These are not short-term harvest strategies. They are long-term guarantees of supply and a deliberate step away from dependence on imports. The next essential foundation is water. Much of Indonesia's water infrastructure already exists, but the promise of capacity must be turned into the reality of service. We are aligning the national water policy to accelerate investment in piping networks, reduce excessive groundwater extraction, and expand access to clean water in all regions. Our benchmark is clear. By 2045, all urban areas should have universal access to piped clean water. Meaning, we must be able to deliver reliable service for household, farms, and industry every single day. The third pillar is energy. We have laid out the RPU PTL 2025-2034, a roadmap for a cleaner, more sustainable power system. Over the next decade, Indonesia will add 69.5 gigawatts of new capacity to the national grid, with 3/4 coming from renewable and storage. The path is clear. Now comes the test of discipline, lowering cost, accelerating deployment, and ensuring that execution meets ambition. Together, these three pillars, food, water, and energy, form the true foundation of sustainability. They are the starting point for any society that aspires not only to survive, but to thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainability is not only about protecting the environment. It is also about how we grow, how we make our economy faster, more efficient, and cleaner at the same time. A sustainable economy is one that drives progress without depleting the very resources that sustain it. In this sense, sustainability is both a moral imperative and an economic strategy. One of the clearest examples of this strategy in action is transport electrification. By transitioning from fossil fuels to electric mobility, we reduce fuel imports, ease the subsidy burden, and modernize our transport system. As of August 2025, Indonesia has sold more than 120,000 battery electric vehicles, reached roughly a 10% market share. New manufacturing plants are now being commissioned and many will be fully operational next year. But electrification must go beyond private cars. The real task lies in decarbonizing public transport, logistics, and freight, ensuring that every link in the chain that moves our people and goods becomes cleaner, more efficient, and more resilient. Beyond mobility, sustainability in growth also means creating more value from what we produce. This is the very essence of downstreaming. Pak Rosan is the expert in this field of area. And the transformation of our raw materials into high-value products. The success of our nickel downstreaming has already reshaped Indonesia's export profiles and created greater national value. Now, we aim to expand that success to copper, bauxite, palm derivatives, seaweed, and other high potential commodities so that Indonesia exports more value, not just more volumes. Yet, as we expand our industrial capacity, we must also make it cleaner. That is why we are advancing industrial decarbonization. Through energy efficiency, digitalization, hydrogen readiness, and where viable, carbon capture. Our goal is straightforward: to decarbonize without deindustrializing and to remain competitive in a global economy that increasingly rewards low carbon production. Of course, none of this transformation is possible without two critical elements. Pak Anin has mentioned this already. Number one, human capital, and number two, investment. The green transition does not run on slogans. It runs on capability. We need engineers who can integrate power grids, data specialists who can anticipate demand and risk, technicians who can maintain new systems, planners who can design resilient cities, and green finance experts who can structure viable, bankable projects. To achieve this, Indonesia is aligning its human capital development with the needs for the future through education, certification, and hands-on apprenticeships that turn knowledge into know-how. The second enabler is investment. Because ambition needs resources and transformation requires scale. According to Bappenas, Indonesia will need around $650 billion in infrastructure investment to achieve its target of 8% economic growth. Of this total, about $190 billion must come from private capital, nearly 4 times more than in the previous period. The state budget alone cannot and should not carry this burden. We are therefore building a financing ecosystem that blends public and private instruments, mobilizing sovereign funds, engaging multilateral partners, and encouraging blended finance. But investment will only flow where trust exists. This is why our focus is on ensuring a predictable investment climate, regulatory certainty, and innovative financing models that de-risk early stages while protecting public interest in the long term. These principles explain why the Coordinating Ministry for Infrastructure and Regional Development is co-hosting this ISF. We strongly believe that collaboration is the true engine of sustainable growth.